Ceasefire now! End the occupation! Death to apartheid!
Well, that was the scene near the White House over the weekend. It got a little bit violent, actually. We have video of that as well. And pro-Palestinian protesters, they damaged fences and forced some staffers to temporarily relocate. This all comes while hundreds of federal workers had planned to walk out today on the job, but that's been canceled because of icy weather. Joining us now is former State Department spokesperson Morgan Ortagus. She is also the founder of Polaris National Security. Look, I was a federal worker at one point. I respect the jobs, but I got to tell you, if I'd walked off the job for a day, first of all, I would expect the president to fire me. Secondly, I would expect the American people would have had no idea that I walked off the job because it wasn't that important.
Yeah, you're totally right, Dana. And when you look at the federal workforce, no one is saying that they can't have opinions on policy, that they can't express their First Amendment rights, that they can't vote. They can do all of those things. They just can't walk off the job. Now, of course, as some people have pointed out on X, walking off the job would require them to actually show up. And we know that most of the federal workforce in Washington, D.C. Actually zooms in or works remotely. Most of the buildings are not nearly at all at capacity. And I think, Dana, actually, the federal workforce is doing us a favor by highlighting this. This has been talked about in Republican and conservative circles for quite some time, that we need civil service reform. And I actually think that they're shedding a light on it. And it should be at the top of the agenda for the next Republican president, because these people have very comfortable jobs, right? When there is a recession or a bad economy or inflation, Washington, D.C. and the surrounding suburbs are largely exempt from it because they're going to get their paycheck every time. They basically can't be fired from their jobs. And what we need is a downsizing of the federal workforce. We need more accountability, more transparency. And the next Republican president should say on day one that you have to show up for work or you're fired. No more of this remote and 3/4 of the building being gone.
Listen to Andy McCarthy from Fox and Friends this morning on that very issue.
You know, someone who worked in the government for more years than I care to say, there's no one who works in the government for any length of time and doesn't have any number of policies that they intensely disagree with. Striking is not an option. Under federal law, it's a crime. I think it would be smart for whether it's Donald Trump or whoever the Republican nominee ends up being, this ought to be a campaign issue. Any government employee who strikes should be prosecuted.
Morgan, aside from that point, can we just talk about the substance of this and what these employees are mad about and what you think he should do?
Yeah, they're essentially upset with the president's policy of supporting our ally Israel. And this is another and crucial point, Dana, is that the federal workforce serves at the pleasure of the American people, and they serve at the pleasure of the president. They weren't elected to anything. They weren't even confirmed by the Senate. And the way that our Constitution, the way that our bureaucracy works is that the people who are in charge of making the decisions about policy are the people that are appointed by the president, that are confirmed by the Senate, but most importantly, the people that are elected, the president and the vice president, by the American people. That's how the system works. And what's happened for far too long in the federal bureaucracy is that these people think because they have been there for decades, because they can't get fired, and because there's no real accountability, they think that they control the policy, that they know better than the elected leaders or the politically appointed leaders. And that's not how the system works. The president is right to stand by our ally Israel. They were attacked. And by the way, it wasn't just Israel that was attacked, Dana. The United States of America was attacked. We have over 33 people, 33 Americans that were killed. We still have 6 American hostages. 6 Americans. It only went down to 6 because 2 were killed recently. 6 Americans are being held hostage by a terrorist group today.
Yeah. Walk off the job for that. That would be worth it. Morgan Ortagus, thank you.
Exactly.
Good to see you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.